How prevalent is this at the moment?
Well, in fact, Richard, there are about 14 U.S. citizens who've had terrorism charges brought against them within the past year. But let me tell you that search warrants were executed at the suspect's New Jersey homes. Alessa's landlord says he was the only child in a religious family. He's surprised by the charges against his tenant. Neighbors of El Monte express similar shock. Once again, here's Ray Kelly.
When you heard what happened?
I'm sorry, apparently we don't have that sound. According to the court documents, authorities were tipped off about this pair in 2006. In 2007, they allegedly traveled to Jordan, were rebuffed when they tried to enlist as mujahideen. Eventually, their attentions turned to Somalia. There were a lot of recordings made by an undercover New York police officer in which Alessa allegedly discusses shootings and beheadings, saying, "We'll start doing killing here if we can't do it over there." Richard?
Gene Meserve with the very latest on that. Thank you. On that element that Gene brought up, which is al-Shabaab and Somalia, the United States listing Somalia as a haven for terrorists. Let's go to Barbara Starr, CNN's Pentagon correspondent, who draw more of those dots together for us. The mention of al-Shabaab and Somalia, what's the significance here?
Well, Richard, you know, everyone has talked about Somalia as being a safe haven for terrorists for years now. But as Gene says, the concern about this case, the concern about the trend here is that foreign fighters are going to Somalia, getting trained to come back to Europe or the United States and possibly wage attacks in the West. The U.S. intelligence community now estimates there may be as many as 200 foreign fighters in Somalia, people from Iraq, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Yemen, the real traditional jihadi homeland. And the concern is they go to this very remote, very rugged African country. U.S. intelligence loses track of them. They get trained in these camps there and then reemerge somewhere in the West ready to conduct attacks. Richard?
Barbara, what's the link with al-Shabaab and al-Qaida? What do we know about that?
Right. Well, you know, Osama bin Laden has been talking for some time in his taped messages, urging his jihadi followers to go to Somalia and support the movement there. The al-Shabaab is basically al-Qaida in Somalia, if you want to think of it that way. It's an affiliate organization who has sworn its allegiance to al-Qaida, and it has been fighting in Somalia now for some time, a very lawless country, trying to basically take it over. The people they are inflicting the most misery and death on are the poor Somalis of that country. Many refugees displaced in their own countries, starving, have nowhere to go. Thousands of people have been displaced by the fighting. Mogadishu is seeing repeated bombings at the hands of the al-Shabaab, and now they have this backing from foreign fighters who've been trained in Iraq and Afghanistan to do things like suicide bombings, IEDs. The fighting's only going to get worse, U.S. officials fear. And they have already updated plans, Richard, to send U.S. commandos on secret missions into Somalia to try and get after some of these top-line al-Qaeda fighters. Richard?
Great background. Barbara Starr, our Pentagon correspondent. Of course, this on the story of 2 U.S. citizens arrested yesterday. We continue to follow that story for you right here on CNN. Thank you, Barbara.